Evan had worked on the mining station for nearly 6 months, far away from the bustling cities of Earth. The station floated like a lonely speck in the vast blackness of space, circling a small asteroid at the edge of explored sectors. It was a place where silence became a companion, and the only sound was the hum of machinery and the occasional voice from automated systems. For Evan, this was ordinary. His days were filled with repairing mining equipment, checking power conduits, and logging data into a computer that never spoke back. He enjoyed his solitude, believing that the only companions he needed were the drones and tools that filled the station. That morning, everything changed. Evan was tightening a loose panel on the main hull when a sudden alarm cut through the stillness. The docking bay had activated its emergency protocol. At first, Evan assumed it was another supply drone gone rogue, but the display panel told a different story. Something unusual had arrived at the bay, a small pod unlike any drone he had seen. It shimmered faintly like a drop of mercury in motion. Curiosity and caution raced through him. He grabbed his maintenance scanner and hurried to the bay. The pod's surface seemed smooth and flawless, with no visible markings or insignias. It hovered silently in the center of the bay, as if waiting for him. Evan circled it carefully, scanning for threats. Nothing showed up, no weapons, no life forms, nothing. He took a deep breath and pressed the access button. The pod opened with a soft hiss and a ramp extended. Evan expected maybe another machine or a delivery of supplies, but instead, a figure stepped out. She was small, almost delicate, barely reaching his shoulder. Her skin had a pale blue hue, almost luminescent, and her long hair shimmered like strands of fiber optic cables. Her eyes were silver, reflecting the dim lights of the station like tiny mirrors. Before Evan could speak, she smiled warmly and said, "You've been matched with a wife, and that's me." Evan froze, certain that the system's translation software had glitched. He blinked. What? Excuse me?" The petite alien stepped closer, her movements graceful and fluid. "It is true. I am Leary of the Solari. My people have determined that you and I are compatible. You are compatible in every way." Evan rubbed his eyes. "Compatible? How?" This must be some mistake. Humans don't do matchmaking like this. Leary tilted her head slightly as if puzzled by his confusion. "Humans do not assign spouses before knowing one another?" she asked gently. Evan shook his head. "No, we choose." He tried to wrap his mind around what was happening. An alien was standing in his station claiming to be his wife. It felt like he had stepped into a storybook he had never read. "But why me?" Leary's expression softened. "Because you scored high in courage, intelligence, and adaptability. My people use scans to find ideal partners across galaxies. You are chosen because you are extraordinary." Evan swallowed hard, unsure whether to be flattered or terrified. "I'm just a technician. I fix machines. That's it." "Yet you survive in isolation," Leary said, her voice calm and knowing. "You do not give up when faced with difficulties. You think creatively. These qualities are rare." She stepped closer, examining the control panels and tools around him. "You will learn to be more than what you imagine." Before Evan could protest further, she began unpacking the pod. Small containers slid out, each opening to reveal glowing objects and materials that hummed softly. She started arranging his quarters in a way that was precise and efficient, cleaning surfaces, organizing tools, and even preparing a strange glowing soup-like substance in one of the station's food dispensers. "Wait, stop!" Evan exclaimed, holding up his hands. "I don't even know you. You can't just—" Leary looked up at him, smiling warmly. "You will accept me soon. This is part of bonding." Evan ran a hand through his hair, completely flustered. "Bonding? Look, I don't even understand what's going on. I didn't agree to anything. You do not need to agree. The bond is mutual. It will grow naturally." He rubbed his eyes again. This was insane. The station, once silent and predictable, now felt like a stage for the most bizarre drama of his life. Yet, as much as he wanted to argue, something about Leary's calm confidence made it difficult. She was tiny, yes, but there was a sense of strength and purpose radiating from her. For a while, they just stared at each other in awkward silence. Then an alert blared across the station's sensors. Evan's heart skipped a beat. "What now?" he asked. Leary's eyes narrowed slightly. "Trouble. You are not the only one interested in me." What do you mean?" "Some do not approve of interspecies unions," she explained. There are those who would stop me. They know of the match. They may try to take me, or worse, Evan's stomach dropped. His day had gone from strange to terrifying in a matter of minutes. You're being chased? By aliens here? Leary nodded. Yes, my journey was meant to be private, but some were faster. The sense of reality crashing down on him made Evan's knees weak. This was no longer about being assigned a wife. This was about survival. He'd been alone in space for months, but now the station felt like a fragile bubble in the middle of an invisible battlefield. What do we do? He asked, voice shaking. Adapt, Leary said simply, and fight if necessary. But first, you must accept me here. You need to prepare, Evan groaned. Prepare? I can barely prepare my meals, let alone fight off alien invaders. Leary's eyes sparkled with amusement. You will do more than prepare. You will grow stronger than you realize. Over the next few hours, Evan watched in disbelief as Leary transformed his station. She activated small defense modules hidden in the walls, rerouted power to reinforce the doors, and installed strange devices that pulsed with a soft blue light. Evan tried to help, fumbling with the unfamiliar technology, but Leary patiently guided him. You are learning, she said encouragingly. Good. Focus, adapt, and act. By nightfall, the station looked different. It was fortified in ways Evan had never imagined. And though he didn't want to admit it, he felt a strange sense of security with Leary by his side. Even if he didn't fully understand her, her presence was calming in a place that had always been lonely. The first signs of danger arrived quietly. Small blips appeared on the station's long-range scanners, stealth ships nearly invisible, approaching from the dark side of the asteroid. Leary didn't panic. She simply reached for a device strapped to her wrist and tapped a series of glowing buttons. The lights along the walls flickered, and Evan realized that some kind of defensive field had activated around the station. They won't get in easily, she said, her tone calm but serious. But we cannot ignore them. They are determined. Evan felt a rush of adrenaline. This was no longer about boredom or loneliness. This was real danger, and he was expected to act. He looked at Leary, small and petite, yet radiating confidence and power. Somehow she was unafraid, and for reasons he could not explain, that gave him courage too. As the hours passed, the ships drew closer, moving like shadows across the void. Leary taught Evan to operate some of the station's defensive mechanisms, explaining in simple terms how the energy barriers worked, how to monitor the hull's integrity, and how to track the enemy's movements. Evan listened, absorbed, and slowly gained a sense of control. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted, adjusting a scanner that glowed under his hands. You can, Leary said firmly. Humans have a strength that others underestimate. You survive in harsh conditions, adapt, and make quick decisions. That is why I was matched with you. Her words sank in. For the first time, Evan felt a flicker of pride. He had never considered himself brave or extraordinary. He had been a simple technician. But now, in the quiet hum of the station with an alien by his side, he felt the first stirrings of something greater. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The hum of machinery changed. Something was approaching the docking bay. Evan and Leary exchanged a glance. No words were needed. Together they moved toward the source. Evan felt fear, yes, but also an unfamiliar resolve. He wasn't alone anymore. He had Leary with him, and somehow that made all the difference. And as the shadow of the first enemy ship appeared on the scanners, Evan realized that his life and his understanding of what it meant to survive had changed forever. He wasn't just a technician in a lonely station anymore. He was a human, and humans could face anything. Evan had never considered himself a fighter, but as the warning lights flashed red and vibrations trembled through the floor beneath his feet, he felt something shift inside him. He glanced at Leary, who stood calmly beside him, her silver eyes fixed on the scanner display. She showed no fear. That alone gave him strength. The station's sensors picked up movement. 3 unidentified ships had landed on the outer hull, attaching like metal insects. The system tried to scan them, but they used some kind of cloaking technology that blocked identification. Evan swallowed hard, gripping the rail. They're inside the docking ring, he said. Leary nodded. They are preparing to breach. Their goal is simple. Capture me before bonding is complete. She turned to Evan, her expression softening. You do not have to fight if you do not wish to. You can hide. I will handle them. Evan shook his head firmly. If they get you, they'll get me too. And even if they don't, I won't let them take you. He surprised himself with the conviction in his voice. This morning he was tightening screws in silence. Tonight he was willing to defend an alien woman he had just met. But something inside him had accepted her existence, her presence, and even her purpose. He couldn't walk away. Leary seemed to understand. She extended her hand slowly. Then accept this. A small metallic object unfolded from her palm. It looked like a handle with glowing lines carved across its surface. She pressed a button, and a faint blue blade of crackling energy formed. This is a Solari pulse staff, lightweight. It reacts to your movements. Evan stared at it. You're giving me a laser spear? Call it what you like, Leary said with a faint smile. Just do not drop it. Evan grabbed it firmly. It felt surprisingly light, humming gently in his grip. The energy around it pulsed with his heartbeat. His nerves trembled, but he forced himself to breathe steadily. What's the plan? They will attempt to enter through docking corridor A, Leary said, pointing toward the outer ring. We will push them back before they reach the main hub. If they gain control there, they will shut down systems and cut life support. Great, Evan muttered. No pressure. They moved quickly through the metal hallways. The station's lights flickered between white and red, casting long shadows across the floors. The hum of machinery was replaced by distant clanks and scrapes, sounds of intruders trying to breach the inner doors. Evan could feel his heart pounding as they approached the corridor. Steam hissed from a damaged vent. The doors ahead were scorched, glowing faintly from heat. Someone or something was burning through them. Evan pressed his back against the wall, pulse racing. Leary stood across from him, silent and ready. A sharp metallic screech echoed through the hallway as the inner door split apart. A towering figure stepped through, clad in dark armor that shimmered like oil. Its helmet was shaped like a bird's beak, and its shoulders carried glowing symbols. Evan froze. The intruder was easily twice his height. It held a long, spear-like weapon buzzing with red electricity. The armored warrior looked at Evan first, then at Leary. It spoke in a low, harsh tone that the station translator quickly interpreted. Solari female. You will return. Leary stepped forward calmly. I refuse. The warrior lifted its spear. Then you both die. Before Evan could react, the warrior lunged forward. Leary moved like lightning, spinning aside. Evan's body acted before his mind caught up. He swung the pulse staff upward. The blue blade clashed with the red spear in a burst of sparks. The impact sent a shock through his arms, nearly knocking him backward. The warrior pressed forward with immense force, driving Evan toward the wall. Fear surged through him, but so did determination. He gritted his teeth, shifting his weight, using the staff to deflect the next strike. Leary darted behind the warrior, leaping onto its back with agility Evan could hardly believe. She struck a glowing point near its shoulder. The warrior stumbled, sparks flying from its armor. Now, Evan, she shouted. Evan didn't think. He thrust the staff forward, driving the blade into the warrior's side. A crackling burst of blue energy exploded through the armor. The intruder let out a metallic howl and collapsed to the floor with a heavy crash. Evan stood frozen, breathing hard. His hands trembled. I actually did that. You did, Leary said proudly. Do not doubt your strength. Before he could respond, more footsteps echoed from the corridor. Two smaller figures emerged, slimmer but fast. They carried compact blasters that crackled with red energy. Evan instinctively reached for the control panel beside him. He slammed his hand onto the override switch. A thick blast door slid down between them, blocking the corridor. Leary glanced at him in surprise. Quick thinking. Adapt, right? Evan said, a shaky grin forming. However, the intruders immediately began cutting through the blast door with synchronized precision. Leary glanced at the ceiling. There is a maintenance route above, she said. We can flank them. Evan nodded. They climbed onto a nearby access panel, pushing aside metal grates to reveal a narrow vent. Crawling through the tight space, Evan could hear the hiss of cutting tools beneath them. Sweat dripped down his brow, but he forced himself forward. Leary followed silently, her movements swift and controlled. They emerged into an upper platform overlooking the corridor. The two intruders were directly below, focused on breaking through the door. Leary tapped Evan's arm and whispered, On my signal, you jump. Aim low, knock them down. Evan nodded. His stomach twisted with nerves, but he steadied himself. Now. They jumped together. Evan landed hard but managed to swing the staff across one intruder's legs. The alien fell with a surprised grunt. Leary spun gracefully, striking the other in the chest with a concentrated burst from a small device on her wrist. The alien flew back into the wall, dazed. The two intruders struggled to rise, but Evan didn't hesitate. He struck again, knocking their weapons aside. Leary pressed her palm to a control node on their armor, activating a paralysis lock. The intruders went still. Evan stood panting. "How many more of them are there?" "Likely one more squad," Leary said. "But their leader has not appeared." Evan frowned. "Leader?" "Yes," Leary said quietly. "A high-ranking enforcer named Varix. He is..." "Efficient," Evan swallowed nervously. "And he's coming here?" "Yes." Evan stared down the corridor, the weight of the situation settling on him. He had taken down enemies with Leary's help, but the real threat was still approaching. He could run, hide, or surrender, but none of those options felt right. Something in him refused to back down. Leary seemed to sense his thoughts. She placed her hand gently on his arm. "Evan, I must ask you something." He looked at her, breathing heavily. "What? If we survive this, will you accept the bond? Not because it was assigned, but because you choose it?" Evan blinked. The station lights flickered around them, the scent of scorched metal lingering in the air. He looked at her silver eyes filled with hope and determination. He didn't know her long, but he knew one thing: he trusted her. "I haven't had time to think about it," he admitted. "But I don't want to see you taken away. I don't want to lose you." Her expression softened. "Then fight beside me, not as an assigned partner, but as a chosen one." Evan nodded firmly. "I will." A sudden echo of heavy footsteps thundered down the hallway. The temperature seemed to drop. Evan felt the hairs on his arms rise. A dark figure appeared in the distance, taller than the others, broader, wrapped in armor with glowing crimson lines that pulsed like veins. Varix. His face was hidden behind a sleek helmet, but his presence alone radiated power. He walked forward calmly, dragging a massive blade carved from obsidian-like metal. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Solari female. Human male, surrender." Leary stepped forward confidently. "We refuse." Varix tilted his head slightly. "Then die." Evan gripped the staff tighter. His legs trembled, but he didn't back away. Varix charged with inhuman speed. Evan barely had time to react. He lifted the staff instinctively, blocking the incoming blow. The force sent him sliding backward across the floor, sparks flying from beneath his boots. His arms screamed with pain, but he held firm. Leary dashed forward, striking Varix's arm with a precision blast. He staggered slightly but recovered instantly, swinging his blade toward her. She flipped backward, barely avoiding the strike. Evan saw an opening. He swung the staff sideways, striking Varix's knee. The armored warrior stumbled. Leary seized the moment, leaping forward and aiming a concentrated blast at a glowing node on Varix's chest. The node flickered, causing his armor to malfunction. Sparks erupted across his body. Varix roared in frustration, slamming his fist into the floor, sending out a shockwave that knocked both Evan and Leary backward. Evan hit the wall hard, groaning in pain. He forced himself up, dazed but determined. Varix advanced, raising his blade toward Leary. Without thinking, Evan threw himself between them. He lifted the staff and blocked the strike with everything he had. The impact rattled through his bones, but he didn't move aside. Varix stared at him silently. Evan glared back. "You want her? You'll have to go through me." Leary rose beside him. "And me." For a moment, all was still. Then Varix lowered his blade slowly. He stared at Evan with something resembling curiosity. "Human," he said. "You are willing to die for her?" Evan didn't look away. "I'm willing to live for her." Varix was silent for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he stepped back. His armor dimmed. Then perhaps the match was true. He turned away calmly. "I will not interfere further."